Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peterson. We appreciate you coming in. Thank you. The sign looks great.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Okie dokie. Next up is a discussion with the DPW director on two items. One is the old fire station at 9 Wattaquatic Hill Road. And the second is a conversation about the town common well replacement. Randy, are you with us?
I am. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing me to speak this evening. Have a couple of items, as you mentioned, that I need some guidance on how to best proceed, how you want to proceed. First one is the old fire station. As part of the building assessment study that was done, I guess last year now, some significant insect boring damage, primarily termites, I guess. It was significant damage to that building. So as a result of that, they recommended that there be no occupancy to the building and that anything of any value be removed from the building, not to be used for storage. We decided to have a more comprehensive, based on the recommendation, timeline's recommendations, is more comprehensive structural report done, an evaluation done of that building to see if it is repairable, if it's eligible for reuse, if it's beyond repair. Before we began the structural assessment, I spoke with the engineer and said, one of the things I'd like to do, and I recognize that the fire chief has, space restrictions now with his additional ambulances and fire trucks and the like, and he's looking for potentially some covered bays to store that equipment. So talking with them and realizing that the building is of a historic nature. There was an old hearse house. I think it was a couple other uses as well. That the building had a historic value to the town. And I said, if there's a way where we could possibly reuse it someplace on another location, which would accommodate, the fire chief's needs and also preserve the building for its historic purposes. Primarily, I was thinking over to the common someplace. I thought it'd be kind of neat to have that on the common for storage. Maybe they could even have like a little partition off, a little concession stand in there, sell hot chocolate or whatever during the holiday festivities, things like that. So I went in with that mentality, saying, is there a way of somehow saving it either on site, reusing it on site, or perhaps moving it to another location? And back several years ago, there was some enhancements done to the structure, we'll say, that I think helped in the short term keep that building up. But really, in the overall scheme of things, according to the structural engineer, really didn't add anything of significant structural integrity to the building. I think you've all been provided with the report from Ty and Bond. Their analysis, I just highlighted a couple of items that I just want to highlight. And the interior general conditions, basically the engineer went through and did a complete analysis of the downstairs and upstairs of the building. And in one paragraph, he says, for the time being, this assembly may assist, meaning the repair that was done about 10 or 12, 15 years ago, something like that, that assembly may assist the damaged members in supporting roof gravity loads, but it does not appear adequate to resist the applicable design loads, nor provide a code compliant construction for continued occupancy. So like I said, it helped keep the building up, but it just isn't meeting the current codes, current design loads that would, snow loads that would occur on the roof, things of that nature. Many of the structural timbers were pretty significantly compromised. He was poking in about a half inch on pretty much most of them. There was one that I think he said was relatively solid, but most of the main structural timbers were pretty well eaten away by the termites. In addition to, we can back up just a hair, in addition to the structural assessment, what we had done too was a laser plan done of the building, so that if it's someday we ever want to historically rebuild that in a way it was done initially, we have the design drawings to be able to do that. So that'd be kind of interesting. But that was just an added technique, and it also allowed the engineer to take a look at the walls and see how much sag there was in the walls and in the roof and things of that nature. The engineer, with regard to Iraqivity recommendations, he said most of the load-carrying members of the building heavily compromised due to boring insect damage and previous repairs with questionable performance. The old firehouse should not be occupied for training, storage, or any other use. Any remaining materials or equipment stored within the building should be removed as soon as possible and stored elsewhere. We mentioned training and storage. Training, the fire department, I believe, was having or in the process of doing some training up on the second floor, periodically doing some training. So he immediately said, the building isn't safe for occupancy and would not sign off on it. There's a couple suggestions for repair recommendations. He says, for the building to remain in its current location requires the deconstruction of the exterior and interior finishes to expose the original timber frame. The timber frame is what is primarily damaged by the insects. Says, once the structural frame is exposed, elements that exhibit boring insect damage could then be replaced. Given the extent of boring insect damage observed during the assessment, the entire original timber frame will likely require replacement. This repair approach would require the complete deconstruction down to the foundation and a full rebuild of the structure. And he's estimating in 2022 dollars between $850,000 and $1.5 million to do that. Pretty scary number. I was shocked. He said that there may be some value, though, to deconstruct the actual architectural elements of the old fire station for reuse in the construction of a new building elsewhere, meaning on town-owned land. And this is kind of where I was thinking about the common. The exterior clapboards and sheathing is right now, he doesn't think is significantly compromised by the insect boring damage. Those could be removed and reutilized someplace in another structure. If it's so desired, recognizing the historic nature of the structure. So you'd have a new building, but it would have the look of an old building, trying to keep the character of the old building and some of the components of the old building. So anyway, I guess I think what I'm looking for from the board is some guidance on how the board would like to proceed with this building, and whether or not we wait to have it just collapse, or what do we do? I've got to secure it better than it is. I'm probably going to have the electric meter pulled just for safety purposes as well. Get in there and make sure there's nothing else of value in the building. So some 12-inch spring heavy snowstorm, the whole thing doesn't come down. He did say that the roof would come down, and probably based on some structural work that was done, I think many years ago, they raised the floor to accommodate some of the fire equipment. And that would support, if the roof came down, that would basically support the immediate collapse of the building. The roof would pretty much land on that second floor landing. But given the structural members of the timbers in the building, it's in pretty precarious shape, I think, if you read his report.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. Yeah, no, I did read the report, and I think the building is in a state where it really doesn't lend itself to do anything with, other than perhaps take it down. I can't see spending $850,000 to $1.5 million to replace it. That would seem to be ludicrous. If we needed additional facility to store stuff, we should probably think about either a better location or a little bit more long range planning. So I myself, I'm fine with basically we need to take the thing down. If there's anything that can be salvaged, if someone for historical purposes or for use somewhere else, that's fine, but I don't see us spending any money in that building at this point in time. Colleagues, Bob, you're on mute.
Keep forgetting about that. So my question is, what's Mike Savageau's building inspector's role in this?
He went in, at the request of Dawn, I met Mike. Mike took a look at the building and I met him over there, and his immediate recommendation was, you need to get a structural engineer in here to take a look at this. You know, we were up on the second floor, and then you could physically see, you know, the inside damage and the reinforcements that were done, and you know, at one point there are cables in the building, and I sort of recall seeing him taught when we were in there earlier this spring. The cable was actually there was a slack in the cable; it was sagging. So I think even then, short time, there was some movement. Mike's, you know, I don't think he was willing to put anything in writing. I can't speak for him, but his recommendation right away was to get a structural engineer in there to do an evaluation. And that's kind of what prompted, besides the building assessment report that was done, that prompted us to get the structural engineer in there to do a real assessment on the building, detailed assessment.
Well, as I understand the process, well, first off, that building's more than 75 years old. And unless it's, what's the word, condemned, there's going to be a long process to identify how it should be dealt with. So I'm wondering, is this building eligible to be condemned? Is that too strong a step at this point, or is there an intermediate step that I'm missing?
My knowledge, to my knowledge, the building certainly would be eligible to be condemned. It can't be occupied. It's unsafe for occupancy. I believe that's the next step. Whether we would also take the step of putting the red X's on it, I don't know. I'd have to speak to the fire chief about that. That would be his call, I believe. But no, I certainly believe that the building inspector could condemn it at this point.
Okay, so I don't think there's any point to trying to not salvage the building, restore the building, or strip it down and rebuild it with the exterior. But even, and I'm not trying to force a decision here tonight, but even taking it apart piece by piece and carefully labeling everything so the exterior can be put back in the original conformation, that's an expensive process also. So I'm fine with vacating the building. I don't know if we want to give the historical commission a certain amount of time to come up with grants to do something with the building. That would be something I'd consider. Or is it really in our interest to make a decision now and put something on the annual town meeting warrant about this building?
What would we be putting on the annual town meeting warrant for the building? I don't see any, the only thing would be is to spend money for reconstruction, and I see no reason to spend any money on reconstruction.
Well, you know, you've got 6 months to come up with a plan to put something else there if you decide to demolish it in a hurry.
No, I think we can separate the need to demolish it for the need to put something else up.
Okay.
We haven't identified whether or not we need anything else, period, and whether we need something else there. So I think those two activities are separate and distinct. Right now we have a building that's in severe deterioration. It is not inhabitable. I think perhaps consensus is we don't want to spend the 850,000 to 1.5 million to rehabilitate the building. I think that's insane. And it needs to come down. Whether we need to put something else in its place or whatnot, that's a separate discussion, which does not need to be worked about now, and we can separate those two.
Okay, that's fair enough, but there's no point in pulling that thing apart and labeling all the pieces if you don't have a plan to use them again. And again,
Well, I'm not suggesting that we pull it apart and label anything. I mean, everything is pretty old. And I'm not necessarily seeing any benefit to pulling things apart and labeling it for use of some already fairly old parts to go someplace else.
okay, well, I guess that's the discussion I want to have. Do we all feel that way? That it's not worth pursuing reusing any portion of this building?
I think that would be a really costly process. And then where are we keeping the materials until somebody has a use for them? We don't really have a storage location, and they will deteriorate if sitting in a pile somewhere. I can't see that as a good option personally. I'm having a really hard time, and I'm not pro rebuilding it or salvaging it, but the price tag seems way out of whack to me. It's basically a barn. 850K to 1.5 million seems outrageous for what it is. And again, wouldn't be interested in pursuing other numbers per se, but that does not seem in line with what is there. Even demoing it and rebuilding it.
I suspect the next step in the process is to, if this is what you want, is for us to pursue probably the same engineer giving us a cost estimate, or we can get quotes on what it would take to take down the building, to raise the building. And then if it's in the price range that I suspect it will be, I think your next step may be whether or not you want to commit ARPA funding to it, so that we can respond in a more timely manner, rather than going through an entire winter and potentially the roof collapsing inward. I mean, I take the engineer's point that it will collapse inward and the entire building probably won't come down, but still, if there's a way that we can address it in a more timely manner, I think that's an option you may want to consider. And we can get pricing on, we can get estimates on that.
Well, Don, I mean, could we not use this as yet another training exercise for the fire department?
Well, Randy wants to answer that, but before he does, let me just say that we would have to, I have not seen a survey of the building as far as asbestos or lead paint or anything like that.
Right, yeah.
So we would have to know what's in there.
Right.
Also the proximity to other structures and the trees that are right there. I'm not sure we could do a controlled burn safely there.
Right.
So it's a little different than the Person's Park cottage
Right.
scenario.
Yep.
So Randy, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you answered the question well. It's exactly what I was going to say. And I mean, to Emily's question about the cost, I think the engineer that did the structural assessment used to have a historic restoration company where this was his business. He'd go out and he would, redo and when they took down buildings, he would take the old timbers and whatever. The cost is what it is because it would be reconstructed in the same form and fashion of the original building, not using, maybe using some modern techniques or whatever, but it's going to be in an antique type reconstruction. I think that's the big cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not supporting that option. I'm just wanted to address that because it seemed incredibly high.
Yeah.
For basically a barn
Yeah,
I was shocked as well.
with a
Yeah,
hayloft.
Yeah, this wouldn't be an aluminum building replacing what we have there.
Yeah.
It's basically
No,
putting back what you already have there, which is, to Randy's point,
I
But-
did Bob brought up a good point about the historical commission, but I am concerned, as Don said, about getting, we're nearing winter here. So I don't know what our timeline is like there, if we can open it up to the historic commission. I don't think the next 2 months is enough time to find grants, so I don't know how realistic that is as winter's coming. But I did think that was a good point. Just something to consider.
Well, considering that, and I'm just being completely objective. I try to be, is the case with First's Park, where the historical commission had well over a decade to deal with that structure and chose to do nothing.
Mhm.
And we're talking about something that is an order of magnitude more money.
Yeah.
So my guess is that would not necessarily be a route, and to be honest, there is from what I can see in terms of the people participating tonight, the historical commission isn't even participating in this conversation this evening. So
One other thing I just wanted to bring up too, if we do decide that to go, the demo route, if there's some way we could kind of memorialize the location in the building with a plaque or something and a photo of the building, just as a, historic landmark, maybe something to look into, kind of like the old mill at Fifeshire, and, there's some around the conservation properties, but maybe just some way to, memorialize.
The historical commission has put up a bunch of plaques on granite, whatever the word is, granite stands throughout town. So they've got the contacts, they know how to get that done, and yes, that is something we should put in that spot.
yep, I agree.
I didn't comment either on this condition, but seeing the excessive termite damage, I agree. I don't see anything salvageable about the building. And the fact the termite damage looked like it was all the way up the columns, which means that was over 100-year colony. I mean, that is some serious termite damage. It's not reversible or repairable at this point. So I just wanted to highlight that too for anybody in the public that is listening in.
Yeah, so I'm fine with demolition.
Yep.
Do we need a motion here?
I suggest that you make a motion to authorize Randy and me to go off and get pricing on that. And as part of the pricing, we can ask if there's anything that of historical significance that can be recovered from it, any of the exterior portions, if that's what you want, to include that as an option.
Could we have that as an alternate?
Yes, I should have said alternate, yes.
All right, so I will move to authorize the director of DPW and the town administrator to pursue information regarding demolition and or salvage opportunities for the fire station at 9 Wattaquatic Hill Road.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Winner,
Aye.
Wysocki.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
next up is a discussion about the town common well placement.
Yeah, well placement is the key word there.
Yeah.
A request came out quite a while ago for me to look at putting a well and then installing some irrigation onto the town common. So started looking at it, and there is an existing stone dug well on the property, fairly low yield. I understand dries up in the summertime whenever the little stream brook that goes under the common dries up, that basically that well dries up as well. So that would not be, able to be used for an irrigation system. Couldn't get the yield out of it, nor can you get water out of it when you truly need it. So started looking for locations to where to best drill a well. And I thought, well, gee, next to the shed seems to make the most amount of sense. There's power into the shed. That's where the existing, well equipment is located, blah, blah, blah. Well, come to find out, well, I didn't know this at the time. Dawn told me about this, that this whole property is under an activity and use limitation plan because of the previous activity on the property. So I did speak with Bob Romer about this, where, all of the contamination was cleaned up. There was fresh gravel soil brought in. So, and got a little bit more on the history, got the name of the LSP who's was in charge of the remediation, and also continues with the annual reports that they have to be completed on its thing. And we discussed it, and we said, where's the best location to locate the well. This afternoon, I did find a plan. Jenny, I don't know if you want to put the non-color one up on your screen. I think that one works pretty well. If you can share that, that would be great. Perfect. Okay, this is a plan that I found this afternoon, which details the limits of what's called the activity and use limitation plan. Basically, one of the activities, you can't put a residence, it's limited use, etc. But you don't also want to put a well within this area, and potentially if there is a remaining contamination someplace that didn't get cleaned up, or if it's a deep pocket of contamination within the bedrock or something like that, you don't want to start drawing it into a water supply, water well. So looking at this property, it gets pretty obvious that all of the grassed area is pretty much the intended use plan. In the lower left-hand corner, you'll see a shrub, and you can kind of see the shed. If you can zoom in just a little bit, Jenny, that'd be awesome. Yep, and just a little bit to the left. Perfect. So right about just down a little ways on the edge of the intended use property, there's a shed. You can see it. That's where I was initially planning on, hey, that's a decent location for this well. Unfortunately, it's too close to the septic system for the abutting property. So I said, okay, where else can we put a well to maintain that distance and also be in a reasonable distance and not affect use of the common. And if you look anywhere on the, I guess, the east side of the little brook towards the property line, Jenny, can you scroll down just a little bit? Or up, I guess, the other way, I'm sorry. Awesome, thank you. Anywhere in that wooded area, or I thought it made most sense to get it up gradient of any groundwater, which would be up behind the amphitheater area. That way it would ensure that the water, I'm assuming, primarily flows down the hill towards Main Street. Putting the well up behind the amphitheater outside of the limits of the activity use plan seemed, in my mind, to make the most sense, considering basically all of the other developed area, we'll say, or improved area is within the restricted area. So I need some guidance on if you still want me to proceed with irrigation for the common. Locating a well out that far is going to be a little bit more expensive, obviously, because you were going to run 220 power out to the well. So it's going to be an expensive venture. Never mind installing the irrigation system. I get a back of the envelope estimate of over $40,000 just to install the irrigation system. So looking for some guidance on what you would like us, how to best proceed.
I think we need some input too from Conservation Commission, Randy, because I think that area, I think there's wetlands in that area that you're talking about behind the amphitheater.
There may be, but I think it rises pretty quickly.
But if we're within 25 feet of the wetlands, it's a do not touch.
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to
Um,
get, we'd have to situate it correctly.
I just
no-
think
without
that needs to
question.
be considered as we're looking for locations. And are there limitations if it were non-potable water? Or is that still, like, you had talked about proximity to other septics and then potential underground contamination? If it's just for irrigation, do we still have those limitations?
I would be hesitant, even if it's non-potable, because you're still gonna get, you know, it's not a fenced-in area. You can't control it while the irrigation is running. You're
Mhm.
still gonna have, people, kids, whatever, running through the irrigation
Right.
or through the wet grass, things of that nature. I'm just not comfortable with that.
Okay. What about the wood line outside? So do we have to go outside of this bold line here? Is that?
That is the recommendation, and I was trying to
Okay.
stay kind of up gradient. I didn't want to, I think either to the north or to the east makes the
Yeah.
most amount of sense. I want to go kind of up gradient to not capture, in the zone of influence, capture anything into the well.
What about like the parking area in that wooded area? If we do, I mean, just as an alternate location, if there's issues with the wetlands.
If you, the parking area is also included within the activity use area. If you scroll down, Jenny, you'll see, or you can scroll back out probably.
I mean, where there's a trailhead there, kind of in that area where it's wooded.
You could do it kind of to the right of the pavilion. You can see the pavilion.
Yeah.
You can see it on that plan. You could do someplace in there. But, but that's even farther away from power source.
Right.
So I was thinking, how can we, with the least amount of disruption, I said, if we, skirted along the grass area out of the improved area somehow, it's a lot, less expensive than if all of a sudden we have to start replanting turf and everything.
Randy, if you go as far out as you're talking, are you sure that we're not going to be pumping contaminated water up to the top, on top of the grass?
That's why I was trying to get, like I said, up gradient. I didn't, there is no assurance. The LSP was comfortable with his, telling me that he felt that the contamination that was discovered was remediated. But I don't know. I wasn't around. I'm going by his best opinion. I mean, you'd probably, you put in a well. Even if you put in a well, I think I would run a hydrocarbons test on it. They're pretty inexpensive, few $100s, something like that, just to see, and maybe periodically check it as well. But that's why I was trying to stay up gradient and not draw in from the contaminated area.
Well, Randy, actually, we had gotten an email from a resident a few days ago that there is actually a parcel that abuts this one. If you sort of look at a sort of north-south map, it's to the left of this parcel, but it actually abuts it. It's a 12-acre parcel that is currently in tax title, which has nothing to do with this property. Obviously, the further away you go, you got to run 220, but you're going to have to run 220, and you may have to run it a little bit longer.
Yeah,
I don't know what the disposition of that parcel is yet.
Is that which property is it? Do you?
I don't know. It's a landlocked piece of property. It's 12 acres. It's if you take the map you have and just make it north and south, so it's vertical. It's to the left. It abuts it to the left.
Jenny, can you
Further
zoom
back.
out a little bit?
Along Main Street?
No.
No. It's inland. It's inland. it's along, it's along the upper
Is it
boundary
the-
of the property.
What's shown here is the plant property?
I
Edmund
don't
Plant-
know who it belongs to, but it is now in tax title. We actually own the property.
Don, can you
And-
tell us which one it is?
Yes, if it's the one I think it is, it would be referenced as the plant property.
So, you know, I don't know what we're gonna do with that, but, you know, obviously, we might want to wait to see what the disposition of that property is, and what plans, if anything, we might do with it or not do with it. But if the town ultimately decides to take possession of it and not do anything with it, i.e. sell it or develop it, that might be another location to put the well. It's certainly outside of the Smith property. I believe the land slopes upward, so it's certainly out of the use area, and it's out of the contamination. So that might be a potential option. I don't think we necessarily need to rush to make a determination to put a well or not put a well in tonight. But I think that perhaps lends us some additional options of where to site a well if we do need to do such a thing.
Yeah, I even if we decide not to keep the whole 12 acres, that doesn't mean we can't carve off a few hundred feet or a few hundred yards.
Correct.
And put a well in there.
Correct.
I agree that we should not move ahead on this right now.
Yep. I think we should spend a little more time thinking about it. You know, if the grass gets dry, the grass gets dry. So it is what it is. But I think we should take our time on this one and see what we need to do.
Okay, so just to be clear, is the board saying that for now you'd like Randy to put this on hold?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and I would like some input too from conservation with regard to resource areas as we're looking at potential locations in the future.
No, I totally agree. And also I would suggest any input that Board of Health would have would be appropriate also.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I would just hate to spend the money and then find out that the water's contaminated somehow or
Yeah.
likely to become contaminated. And frankly, I'm not settled on the idea of spending $40,000 to irrigate the town common.
Exactly. Right.
is that just for the well? That doesn't include also the irrigation system? Would that be an additional cost?
That was just the cost for the piping and the irrigation system. The well and everything would be above and beyond that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's we should hold off and spend a little more time investigating.
I'm very comfortable with that. I've got a lot of other things to do. So this has been kind of
Yeah.
sitting on my back burner already.
I don't, you know, and so it doesn't, you know, to help you out with that, Randy, I don't see this as a problem that needs to be solved before next summer.
That's great.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
no,
not-
we
it's not like,
take
it's
our
not
time.
like we're gonna come back to you in March and say, okay, what's going on? I don't think we need to solve this for next summer.
No,
That's great. That's good.
you got an old fire station to take down first.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe there's a water source there.
All right.
Randy.
All right.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Randy.
it.
Thanks,
Thank
Randy.
Appreciate the
Have
time.
a good
night.
Thank you very much. Thanks,
Okay.
everybody. Thank you.
Great. All right, now, next up is the Conservation Commission update and discussion. This is part of a number of discussions we're going to have on various boards and committees that report into the select board or appointed by the select board. So first up, we're going to have a conversation with the Conservation Commission. Welcome, everybody. Rebecca, I see you. How are you tonight?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent, excellent.
I do have our chair present and our vice chair of the commission, Jim Garrity and Brian Berube, with me as well.
Great.
How would you like us to basically go through the update? I do know I sent you some information in your packet, so I hope that did get to you. And I can certainly go down those items, and then as you have questions, bring them up, or I can just go down the list and you can ask questions after. How would you like to proceed?
Maybe just go down the list that you have. If we have any questions, we'll ask them as we go through. So,
Okay, great. So the first and foremost was basically what we deal with on a daily basis and month to month, which is the permits and the public hearing processes. Currently, we have 4 public hearings before the Conservation Commission. 2 are actually very large projects that will be starting actually next Tuesday. Those will open. That's Mallard Lane and 580 Main Street. Those have already been through ZBA, as you're aware. Then we have the trail property review and maintenance, which I listed a few items. These are some in collaboration with the volunteers from the Bolton Trails Committee, Bolton Conservation Trust, which is to finalize a few of the extensions and formalize the trails by 2024 on the Taggart extension. So that's extending from the Taggart parcel that was just acquired to the Forbush Millfield parking area. We're in discussions with the private property owner to allow for the section of trail that we're missing, essentially, to connect those 2 areas. Then Powder House, we have an area that we're proposing to connect through to Harvard Road, and then just really solidifying some of those trails through that parcel or that group of parcels. The Oaks, that's a subdivision that has a conservation restriction and land owned by the Conservation Commission. The conservation restriction is owned by the trust. So this year and last year, we've been chipping away at that, marking out the trail, clearing it. And then, of course, the horse ring field, in collaboration with volunteers from Bolton Trails Committee, Bolton Conservation Trust, looking at the trail that was already there and just trying to map it and then solidify once the permitting process is finalized for 580 Main and whatever comes of that, just making sure that we're solidifying and memorializing the trails that exist today, and then mapping them, of course. Ongoing activities consist of maintaining and clearing trails from obstructions. Then we have ongoing property maintenance. For instance, at Bowers, we have Jim Henderson going out and mowing and addressing some of the invasive species, along with we've been hosting a couple invasive species maintenance parties per se. Then we have the Bower Springs Conservation Area. That's probably the largest item coming down the line, which is we had BSC Group do an analysis with GZA looking at the 2 earthen dams because we're starting to see some erosion on them. And so therefore they confirmed that material needs to be brought in to regrade those earthen dams, and then also to remove the large diameter woody vegetation along the slope. So there will still be vegetation there. It just won't be along the mid sections of the earthen dams. So that's a project in the future, near future though. And we're hoping to do a lot of public outreach with that. The other option for that would be to close some of the trails and a portion of the property. It's one of our most heavily trafficked properties, and I don't want to go too far down the line with that project, but that will be something I'm sure we'll be communicating to you as far as budget or grants to accomplish that project in the future. Then we have outreach to Great Pond properties. We have 2 great ponds within the town of Bolton, which is Little Pond and West Pond. And although Chapter 91 licensure is under DEP's jurisdiction, they are making a large effort to bring docks or wharfs, basically anything floating, whether it's anchored or not, to the shoreline, into compliance, and that's across the state. Along with that, even though Chapter 91 licensure is not required to be submitted to the Conservation Commission, rather the state, most docks, because the way they are anchored or the footings that are involved are actually jurisdictional as well to the Conservation Commission. So the 2 are partnering to just bring the properties into compliance. So that's relevant in the sense of a few of the parcels that do have docks around those two ponds. And then of course, Parsons Park. Then we have the vulnerability preparedness program that currently we're working with the Nashville River Communities Resilient Lands Management Project, or NRCRLM, which is a little easier to get through. It's a 2-year project. We're in year 2 of that grant. So the first year was really focused on the forest and management of the forest with the lens of resiliency as we have throughout the MVP project. We also looked at our current bylaw and regulations and tried to incorporate and did in fact incorporate some bylaws and regulations that are associated with increasing the community's climate resiliency. And that's in partnership with Clinton as well in a budding community. So that we have the output of that will be tailored bylaw and regulations for each of the communities, Clinton and Bolton. And then we'll go through that and make sure that it actually is something that the town would like to continue with. And of course, that goes through the town meeting process if it's accepted by you all. And then so now in year 2, we're finalizing and tweaking those bylaw and regulations to see how they fit into the various departments. And then in addition to that, we're focusing instead of on forest, lawns and landscapes. So the point of that is to provide, again, the climate resiliency lens, but provide guides for residents, commercial properties, municipal properties, state properties, so that individuals have a set of plans and information to go to when we're talking about resiliency and they want to participate, but there's nothing directing any first step. So that's really what we're hoping to do with this project. And the end of that project will be June 30th of this coming year. So there will be a case study, public meeting, and everything that comes with that in terms of coordinating and managing that. Then we have the open space and recreation plan update. The current 2017 plan, which we updated when I actually first started here, expires in 2024. The plan typically takes about a year to update. And therefore the timeline would be to start approximately December, January of this year in terms of getting that group in line. The good thing is that we're working on the master plan, so that will also, a lot of the updates are very similar. So we can pull the data that's going to be informing the master plan and vice versa. And then of course, my department assists in informing the master plan process as well when necessary. So that is happening in the background. Some of the outreach we perform throughout the year is we're hosting monthly guided walks. In the summer, we spread them out slightly because a lot of people go away for the summer. So we're ramping that back up again as we come into fall. Every year we've coordinated, sometimes 2 a year. We've coordinated story walks in collaboration with the Bolton Public Library. We always coordinate the Earth Day and World Water Day events with the local library. This year we held the first Learn to Fish event at Bower Springs in collaboration with Mass Wildlife and the Massachusetts Environmental Police Officers, which was a huge success. We got a lot of good feedback. So I think that's something that we'd look to do next year and maybe do it on an annual basis, but we'll see the interest as that continues. And then we always try to work with the scouts or the local groups who are looking for, whether it be school hours or working on Eagle Scout projects. In particular, we have 2 proposed projects awaiting confirmation review by the Scout side council. I apologize if I'm not stating that correctly, but basically they have their own review process. That is the Taggart Crossing and finalization of the trail delineation. So that's the crossing today from Forbush into the Taggart parcel. There's actually a very small boardwalk that's only temporary, and we have permitted through the Conservation Commission an actual bridge or hiking trail crossing. Then we also have some restoration work at Bowers in the upland area towards where the Tom Denny Nature Camp is hosted. Scout has come forward to restore some of that area and to reduce the erosion that they've been seeing increase over the past couple of years. I also included on here before I started into the open space lands and future acquisition section, I wanted to put a note about land conservation in general and the different processes that I go through talking with residents, and then the town commission also goes through. And that is, so the open space and recreation plan that I had been talking about before actually guides the process for conservation and recreation land. That's the whole concept of that plan. Additionally, the goals may be met through acquisition, restriction, and easements regarding the conservation, the physical and legal conservation of land. So it's not always the purchase of the whole parcel itself. Then, of course, we always try to prioritize project based on grants when we're able to, but these opportunities at times arise in very short notice when ownership changes or a family member passes or individuals move, and other reasons as well, of course. There are not many vacant parcels left as unused. Most parcels are currently in agricultural land. And yes, the goal would be to protect and keep those acres in active agriculture. There are some forest backland parcels, as someone had mentioned, there's at least one in that area behind the common. And some of the parcels that are forested backland have extensive resource areas for natural heritage endangered species program interests, which is rare endangered species or rare endangered species habitat. So those are areas that are very limited or restrictive when it comes to development anyway. So those are some of the characteristics that the commission filters through. So as far as the open space lands and future acquisitions, I know that is something that's come up in the past, really just highlighting in the information that I provided. The action plan in the OSRP, Open Space and Recreation Plan, is what drives and establishes the to-do list for me and then the commission moving forward. So what projects we're working on over the course of the next 7 years, what have we accomplished, where are we going with that? So that's why it needs to be updated frequently or every 7 years, because then you've either met those standards and need new goals, or some things are outstanding. And I did include in the packet as well what the commission looks at anytime there's interest in a parcel or restriction, whether it be for recreation or open space. And that is the preservation of rural and historical character of Bolton, protecting the water resources of Bolton, preserve and encourage agriculture, protect natural resources and wildlife habitat, conserve open space areas for public use, and then provide active recreation opportunities to Bolton citizens. So those are the very large scale goals that are established in the open space and recreation plan. There's another section I referenced just so that you're aware that there's more detail for each of those goals in the community vision. And then I also included not only a reminder about the open space and recreation plan needing to be updated, but also our past project, the Apple Country Natural Climate Solutions Project, which was also an MVP project we just completed, provide a lot of great data to both inform the master plan, the open space and recreation plan, and just going forward, different ways to look at the town and approaches to both managing, maintaining, and then utilizing these various parcels throughout the town. And that's something that's ongoing. We've been constantly invited to conferences and presentations to share the information from the Apple Country project. So that's some coordination and management as well. But that is, I guess, there's a lot of smaller things that go on, but I would say that's a lot, but it's a good representation of what's being done by the conservation department now. So you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them, or if the chair or vice chair needed to add anything that I missed.
No, I was gonna say, I think you covered it really well, Rebecca. I would point out too, with updating the OSRP, that's usually key in grant funding opportunities. It's one of the things they look to is to make sure we have an updated, that we have an up-to-date OSRP, and that, you know, whatever we're looking for grant funding actually fits the goals of our OSRP. So it is really important for us to have that in place. So as you know, Rebecca has done a wonderful job in securing some grants, some significant grants in the last few years. I would point out, Rebecca says we a lot. She is a department of one. It is Rebecca. She has made really good use of interns and volunteers, even securing grant funding for temporary positions. Along those lines, she does a wonderful job of that. And along those lines, I always want to point out, and I know I've said it before, but one of my biggest fears is we are really, really, really blessed in this town with an incredible amount of volunteers that work on our trails. The Trails Committee, they do an excellent job. They're very professional at it. They're easy to work with. They respect all the wetland protection laws, and on and on and on. And I don't know how up to date this is, but this from a few years ago, we had 55 miles of paved roads in town and 45 miles of trails. It is a huge undertaking to keep those safe and navigable. Everything you heard Rebecca go through, the different commissions she's on, everything that she's working with, everything we're working on, it's basically Rebecca and or any volunteers she can kind of get into the mix. That is constantly a fear of mine, is that, especially on top of this too, we don't need to depress everybody tonight and get into long conversations about climate change. But if you just look at this summer, like a serious drought followed by, you know, a week of almost flooding, increased drought, increased flooding, it's what we're going to be facing. That's why we're doing a lot of these climate resiliency programs. It's going to take people to implement these things and to get these things done. I just always want us to keep in the back of our mind that we may need to have to increase funding for actual staffing on the conservation side, whether it's hours or staffing. Again, our volunteers are incredible, but people retire, people move, that can fall apart in an instant. And I guess that was the one comment I wanted to have tonight. Again, I'm here to answer any questions you have, though Rebecca will answer them probably better and more eloquently.
No, thank you very much. Thank you. The Conservation Commission, and especially Rebecca, is doing an outstanding job. I mean, it's quite impressive, the long list of items that Rebecca is involved in.
Mm-hmm.
When do you ever get to go home?
People don't realize how the extent of what the Conservation Department, meaning Rebecca, and the Conservation Commission have responsibility for. And I don't want to miss an opportunity to say two things. One, I just want to echo everything that Brian said. Rebecca does an absolutely outstanding job. My office is directly across from hers, so I have a unique perspective as to how busy she is during the course of a day. The Conservation Commission, I think, does a wonderful job as being stewards of the land. And I have, since the day I came to Bolton, I have been amazed at the level of volunteerism and commitment that we see in this town.
Yeah.
And the volunteerism, you know, it doesn't maybe fit the traditional definition, but it does for me. It includes the Conservation Commission. You know, the Conservation Commissioners put in a lot of time and effort, and they have a lot of responsibility, and it's pure volunteerism. They don't get paid lavish $300 a year that the select board members get paid to do their job. So so I just want to, I'd like to thank, you know, the members of the Conservation Commission also for their time and commitment. But yeah, our Conservation Department does a phenomenal job. And yes, we do have some interns. We've had paid and unpaid interns and the like. And that's also because of work that Rebecca's done to pursue that. But so good job, Rebecca.
Right. No,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Emily, Bob, any comments?
I have
No, I just want to say I appreciate the detail and the very thorough presentation of all the things you're working on tonight. It's impressive.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for coming in. Next up, because we're running a
you.
little bit behind schedule, is a transfer station recycling discussion with the Bolton Boy Scouts. Steve Kimball and Dan Gaudette, are you with us?
We are. Thanks.
Excellent.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening. Yeah, the reason we asked you to come in, I mean, that this was something I had spoken to the Boy Scouts quite a number of years ago. Obviously you have the red shed at the crest of the hill coming into the transfer station. And, you know, I've noticed quite a bit, you know, our residents are bringing up their recyclables, but a lot of residents aren't sort of splitting things out. And there's a lot of deposit bottles and cans that are going into the recycling bin as opposed to going into the red barn. So we want to kick off a discussion on how we might be able to encourage the residents to do that separation. So one, you get increased revenue, and two, it decreases the amount of material that's going in those bins. So it's a sort of a win-win for everyone else. I can't remember who I spoke with years and years ago, but there was some discussion about putting some additional smaller bins or signage up by the bottles and cans and those kinds of things. But you know, I don't think we're going to come up with any immediate solutions, but I just want to have a discussion with you folks on how we might be able to move things forward a bit and see how we can encourage the residents to do that separation before they get to the transfer station, and provide you with what you need and provide us with what we need, which is less going into our bins.
Yeah. No, this is great. So first of all, my name's Steve Kimball. I'm the Scout Committee Chair. Dan Gaudette leads our fundraising and leads all efforts at the transfer station. So he and I had some time to talk through this and brainstorm a little bit. So, hey, Dan, why don't I have you kind of like share some of the thoughts that we have?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's visibility. You know, as a Bolton resident, before my joining Boy Scouts, I'm not sure I knew what the red shed was. I can't remember that far ago, but I think visibility, as you kind of mentioned as well. There are no signs at the at the plastic and metal bins. There used to be a little handwritten sign, and there used to be, and there still may be from time to time, depending on whether the staff there puts a trash bin out there. But we could put some signs there, as I do see it. I recycle there, and I do look in, there's 5 cents, there's 5 cents. I don't know, I'm guessing it's probably about 5% of that bin particular, probably no more than that, is 5-cent returnable cans that could be redeemed. But I think we could put signs there. We could work with the transfer station people and put a sign. I'm a little hesitant to put too many bins there because I don't really want that to be the drop off. But I would suggest we put a sign and a bin, make sure there's one actually there with a sign pointing to it. And maybe even entertain a sign that's near the red shed that actually explains what it is. Again, when I became a new resident here and drove into the transfer station, I think I came for a couple of years not knowing that I could put my redemption cans over there. So I think it's visibility is probably the first and probably the only workable thing we could try to improve the people from dumping them in the container, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to that also that, I mean, in the past, we've had small barrels that we put there and then brought them down, right? I think a better approach would be, in addition to the signage, that I think would help to have better signage at both locations, at the large spot as well as in the shed. But if we can get one of those big bins, the ones that are similar to what's used with the wheels that you have at the end of your driveway to have your garbage picked up.
Trash bin, yeah.
Yeah, trash bin, something that's really big with signage on it. It would be easier and safer for the boys to transfer it down to the shed.
That's the tension, Steve, though. We don't really want them to put it there. It's kind of last resort. Oh, I could, you know, we really want them to put it
Yeah,
right.
it happens. You get there and everyone has all their stuff in one bag. I would say that it wouldn't hurt to have some comms in the newspaper about this as well.
That's a
But
good point.
yeah, whether it's educating folks on what the scouts do or having maybe a thoughtful article on recycling and the most effective way to do something about it and what the town of Bolton is doing. And maybe we can put together something there that helps drive some of this visibility.
I mean, I typically, every once in a while, I do a public service announcement here at the select board about that. So it all depends on who's watching. So, you know, we do have some limited outreach, but I think some additional awareness needs to be done, and you know, how we can help. I mean, maybe in the beginning, I mean, if you can have some folks up there just to remind the people who are on a Saturday morning, maybe a couple of hours, somebody there, just to at least reinforce what's going on, and maybe people will eventually change their behavior a bit. Because they're bringing it up. I mean, they're doing a great job recycling. It's just that they're putting it in the wrong place.
Right. So you already got the right people that are willing to do the recycling, do the right thing. And that's exactly. It just takes a long
Challenge is then having boys that are, you know, range from 11-year-old to 17 that are standing up as a resident, dropping stuff off and trying to find a politically nice way to say, hey there, you really should put this down there because we need the money, right? So I'm a little cautious about that because we've talked about doing that in the past. And I think we struggled as a group to say, hey, is it really a good format to have the boys doing that?
Yeah. Well, there's always the parents.
There is.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We can round. Yeah, we can work on signs though. I think that's the first thing to do and see if there's.
I would say at least that, yeah, because I know when I spoke to the scoutmasters well over a decade ago, there were some plans to do that, but unfortunately that didn't occur. So
I do remember there being a hand sign maybe 6, 7 years ago. Of course, it got rained out and turned into junk. Yeah, we can work on something more
We
permanent.
definitely work on the signage. I mean, is there anyone up there that has the availability of one of those bins that we can use that we can mark up and put signage on as well?
you mean one of the large bins that have wheels on it, like the waste transfer kind of stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll direct that question to our town administrator, Don Lowe.
Honestly, I'd have to speak to Randy. I'm not aware of a spare bin that we could use, but there may be one that I'm not aware of, but I'll speak to Randy about that.
Okay.
That's great. Thanks, Don.
Yeah. All right. So you're going to work on some signage. We'll see if there's some spare wheeled garbage cans that we can possibly use to start the process.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Emily, Bob, any questions, comments?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming in.
Reconnect, then maybe give this a couple months and just see how it is, and then reconnect.
Yep.
And we feel like we're turning the wheel on this.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's let it go for a few months, and we can reconnect at the beginning of the year.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, good night. All right, well, next up is the Bolton Volunteer Fire Association June 2023 Massachusetts Muster League discussion. Jeff, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I've put together a packet, and I think first we'll go over what we talked last time. I think it was a great discussion last time with regards to questions that the select board had about alternate locations. And we went through and did an analysis of alternate locations throughout the town. In the packet, what I also included was sort of what each of the events were during the muster and why we needed such the length of area that is required to hold each of the events. And I also want to talk about the fact that we've actually gone out per the request from the select board. We've reached out to the library. We've also reached out to the local businesses along that area of road. And we received some contact back from one of the businesses. We're still waiting to hear back from the other one. But public information that they have available is that their business hours don't include Saturday during the day. I did hear back from the dentist, and they did explain to me that they don't typically open, and they don't plan to open on that particular day either. So I sort of want to kick it back to the select board and ask them if they had any questions based on the information that we presented.
Well, it seems that you still want to do Main Street and close Main Street, and you've given a number of reasons why a number of the alternative sites don't work. I would ask about the Neshoba High School. You talked mainly about the light poles are a problem. When on Main Street, you've got, houses on either side, and you've got trees and all that other stuff. And I actually looked at 580 Main Street. I took a drive back there, and yeah, there's some cracks in the pavement, but so explain to me why at least those two sites don't work. And I guess another question is, the last time that the association held a muster in Bolton was 2013, which will be 10 years ago next year. Between 2013 and now, exactly where in the towns that held it, where did they hold the muster, and what streets were closed?
So I can speak to several of the previous locations. And as I pointed out in the packet, we did have a break year because of COVID. But one of the previous years, it was held in Harvard, and it was held downtown in the center of Harvard. And last year it was held in Rutland, and it was also held on their Main Street in the center of that town in Rutland as well. And they did detour the traffic around that area for the past 2 years. Those are the two locations.
Okay, well, I know of where it was done in Harvard. In Rutland, was that a numbered highway like Bolton with the amount of traffic that goes through, or is it? I need to know some detail, because we're talking about a main thoroughfare going through the center of town, and just thinking about the fact that you want to close Main Street for upwards of 6 hours, and that is unfortunately we can't stop it, but it's a main thoroughfare for large trucks, 18-wheelers, and especially trucks going down Manor and needing to turn left onto Wattaquatic is for over 5 or 6 hours. So
Stan,
you gave the last two, but where have they been over the past 10 or so years?
sir, if I may, to answer your question about Rutland, it was on Route 122 in downtown Rutland. Some of the other roads that have been closed historically is stuff like Route 12 in West Boylston, and their main drag going through the center of Boylston.
Same thing with Sterling, right? Well, I guess they do divert traffic off of Route 12 on Sterling.
So, all right, well, going back, so why is Neshoba High School and why is 580 Main Street?
So,
not
and I took some pictures. I didn't unfortunately include the pictures and thank you, Stan, for going out and investigating it. There's a couple of things about 580 Main Street that is interesting, and we're just not sure of the availability of the parking lot, given what options may be happening on that site. But we did take a look at the parking lot, and there was cracks in the parking lot that had grass growing up through the sections where they had the cracks. And what that does, that makes it for an unsafe competition area for the firefighters who are participating in the event if they slip and fall, or if it actually redirects any of the equipment that we're using. And I know it's just grass and people think it's just grass, but grass and water will definitely make things really slippery. With regards to the high school, we took a look at the high school. We actually, unfortunately, I don't have it. We actually took aerial drone footage of that high school. It was I believe the senior parking lot, which is off to the left as you look at the high school. And one of the things that we considered also as a location area for the spectators to sit. And in that location, there's no real shaded area, but we said we would incur as a department the cost of bringing in a tent to be able to provide some shade, because in the summertime in June, it's a lot of times it's quite warm during these events. So we wanted to provide some, an area for the spectators to view the events. And so that would have been, that is an additional cost for us. But what happens in that area where the light poles are, that's the longest part of that parking lot. And then there's a jog in as you go towards the end of the property line. And it's a bump in. And so what we really were trying to do is provide a safe area for the event to happen and not actually box the antique fire trucks into a narrow enclosed area for the event. What we actually envisioned was that we would actually go towards the playing field if we were to hold the event there, and actually have the hoses deployed down towards the playing fields behind the high school. And it just, being able to arrange the vehicles in that location and being able to basically have a location for staging of the next vehicle pulling in and getting ready for the next event. We would basically take up the front parking lot for the staging area for all the fire trucks. And then we looked at parking then. Where would we be parking the spectators? And we're envisioning somewhere between 100 to 200 spectators. And we were saying, okay, possible parking would be by the auditorium in the high school, and there's not that many parking spots available there. And we're hoping to bring in some vendors from local businesses in Bolton. And so we're looking at locations where the vendors would set up. Where can we safely place the vendors? And so speaking to that effect, I've actually reached out to Parks and Rec, and we talked to Parks and Rec about making use of the town common and having that as a spectator and vendor area as well. And so we looked at the high school as a location where could we host some of these vendors, and was okay, possibly near the spectator area that would put it behind the high school near the football field area. But that's also the area where the antique fire engines would be finishing off the event and progressing back around to the staging area.
Well, it seems to be that you have more room at the high school than you do have on Main Street in any of those discussions that you just said. So my issue is that, yes, you held this thing in 2013. You closed off Main Street between Wattaquatic and Manor, but now we are now 10 years hence. There's a lot more traffic. We now have some changes in the topography. There's a tremendous amount more traffic. I'm not inclined to close the street for 6 hours on a Saturday during the summer.
So you're saying that if void of that location, there's no other public locations in town that, we went and investigated that would fit the bill for a public street way to hold the event. So you're saying that you feel that you're not inclined to close Main Street during the summer for this event, because you were breaking up there. I didn't hear what you said.
Well, as I stated last time, I am not necessarily inclined to closing Main Street for upwards of 6 hours on a Saturday in June for any event, given the amount of traffic that goes through, and knowing that we have a significant amount of truck traffic that goes through, and how that traffic is going to navigate making lefts on Manor to Wattaquatic.
So let's, and I would like to talk a little bit about the truck traffic. And I know that that seems to be a main concern. And one of the things that we had talked about doing, and we had this discussion with the police chief as well, is we talked about getting these DOT signs and placing DOT signs at major points where trucks could divert before entering the town, putting the signs up on 495 ahead of time, not just the day of, but ahead of time, alerting truck traffic that there'll be detours on Main Street. Then also placing the DOT signs at major intersections prior to progressing down Main Street so they wouldn't actually get there. So that we're hoping to, making sure that there's going to be controlled traffic so that we would be able to divert the truck traffic out of the center of town during that event. So it wouldn't be a problem.
Can I jump in here for a moment?
Sure.
Sure, Bob, please.
I just like to start with a perspective on the event. It's not a civil defense exercise. They're not going to pretend that there's an accident someplace and it's not a training exercise. It's not even an official fire department. As I understand it, it's not even an official fire department activity. It's an activity of a group of firefighters within the fire department. It is, for lack of a better term, a sporting event, a recreational activity. And I am having a very difficult time trying to justify closing Main Street on a busy 3-day holiday weekend for a sporting event.
So I first wanted to talk about this concept of a sporting event. It's actually a way for us to show off some of our techniques, but it also is something that we use for recruiting. These events are typically used by towns who are members who are typically call volunteer fire departments. I'm a resident of the town of Bolton. I've lived in the town of Bolton almost 20 years. I'm on the call department. I give to the town, and this is an opportunity for me to show what we do as from skills that we've honed, but it also is used to sort of maybe get some other folks in town who are interested in joining, have an opportunity to talk to us, but see some of the stuff that we do. And it can be fun. And it's not all dealing with, car accidents and structure fires and such. And so it's definitely on that. The other thing is that this is not there has been roads closed on 3-day weekends in this town in the past. It just happened this year. So we're trying to, work with the community. We're made up of members who are residents of the town of Bolton. And we're trying to actually also show off our association as well.
No,
So,
I have no problems with the idea of the muster. I think it's a great exercise, and like you said, it's a good way to promote the fire department. I just can't believe that with the 60+ miles of road that we have in town, that the only place that's suitable to do this is the 1/4-mile section between Wattaquatic and Manor Road.
So I know that every time that this event, it comes up for Bolton's turn, there is reviews of new roads, existing roads in town. This event has been held 12 times in the town center. The Muster Association is almost 100 years old. It's been this will be the 96th running. It's been in the town of Bolton multiple times, and it's every time it's been in that exact location, because there hasn't been we have not found an alternate location that would fit the requirement.
Well,
we're asking you to find an alternative requirement, because the fact of closing the road now, when we have 20-odd thousand car trips a day down that road, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I'm not going to deny the fact that there is definitely traffic in the town. I got up and I went to the backyard Bolton, and the number of pedestrians crossing Main Street there, and what traffic was around that. And, I'm not here to say, hey, look, there's not going to be traffic. What I'm saying is that we're going to work really hard with all the other public resources to find ways to alleviate that type of traffic. And it's not that we're just going to show up one day and say, hey, put roadblocks up. We're running an event here. No, this is going to be in complete collaboration with every other town resource.
I've got to believe that there's other locations you can have this event.
Okay, so do you suggest that we continue to do other investigations and return to the select board with
Yes,
another analysis?
I have no objection to having a muster in town.
Okay,
I have no objection to the muster at all. My issue is closing Main Street on a weekend for hours at a time. This is not like closing Main Street for the Little League parade or the Halloween parade or something like this. This is this is from you got it's at least from 10 to 4. But no, I have no issues with having the muster in town.
mm-hmm.
The issue is solely with closing Main Street for 5 to 6 hours on a Saturday.
Yep.
That is the issue.
Okay.
Yep.
And I propose that in working with the select board, and I'd like to do this with the select board, I propose that we go and if the select board has suggestions of locations that we can look at, we'll go out and evaluate them. And I want this to be a collaborative situation here. I don't want us to be like, no, this is why we're picking this. We're only looking here. I want to make sure that we're working with and addressing every concern possible. And if we can provide any more information to the select board, we'd be more than willing to do so. And I'm willing to put the hours and effort in to look at other locations as well. And so please don't think that we're just not willing to look elsewhere. We're trying to best hold the event where it provides safety for the spectators, but also safety for the folks who are participating in the event.
No,
Well,
I agree.
That you
I
came
agree.
to us a year ahead of time shows that you're interested
Yep.
in working collaboratively to
Yep.
find a solution that works for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, at the last meeting when you came before us and asking for this, we proposed looking at the Neshoba Regional Valley High School, 580 Main Street. We also asked you to look at Paragon, which so we've already provided you and recommended that you look at least 3 other locations.
Fort Bush was another one.
So I think now to see where else.
Stan, you've dropped out.
Oh, no, I said we've recommended at least 3 different locations the last meeting for them to investigate. So I think it's time for the association to start looking. And does it necessarily need to be held in Bolton? I mean, does it?
So to that point, Stan, thank you for bringing that up. We did, and Emily, thank you for suggestion Forbush. We did take a look at Forbush as well. And the one section by Forbush that was straight and flat was after the soccer field. But that we're getting into Lancaster then. And with regards to holding it in another town, it'd be kind of discouraging for the members who live in the town of Bolton to actually have to hold the Bolton muster in another town. And we want to show off Bolton. I'm proud of Bolton, and I want to show it off. And I want to work with everyone here to find a solution that allows us to do that.
Okay, well, come back to us when you have 1 or 2 other suggestions, and we'll see how that works out.
I do appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, next up on our agenda is the town administrator report. Don, we have a grant update, Derby Field update, and an update on affordable housing inventory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to go just a little bit out of sequence. First, the Derby Field update. mainly just wanted to clean up a misstatement that I made at the last meeting, which is not as bad as a mistake. So the misstatement that I made, I made two accurate statements and then wove them into an inaccurate one. So we are going to definitely be pursuing grants, grant opportunities, two of them actually, to try to deal with any of the costs that will come from our plan. And I also said that it would take a year or so for the field to go through a few growing seasons before it was usable. Somehow I translated that into September of 24. We thought it could be ready. I didn't consider the length of time it would take to go through the grant process for the application, the review and so forth. So when you include that, it's actually more like September 25 or closer to 25 than 24. I had some people on the committee that were rather surprised when I announced such an aggressive date, and they were right. So I just wanted to make sure I reset expectations there. So it would take a little longer, but if we can get money to pay for this, then it's all worth it. The update on the affordable housing inventory, the board already has this information, but I think it's important for the public to know. Before Valerie Ortiz left, our previous town planner, she and I discussed about submitting as part of our inventory for subsidized housing, the proposed project at 580 Main Street. Hoping that perhaps DHCD would include that in our inventory. Had no idea whether or not they really would, but it was certainly worth a try. Well, the good news is that they did include it in our inventory. So our inventory as of right now, including that proposed housing or projected housing, I guess it's beyond the proposed state at this point, would add up to 1,729 housing units, meaning the percent subsidized is 17.24%, which gets us way beyond the 10% threshold, which gets the town back in control of its own fate as far as any future projects. So
That's great.
Not that the town would necessarily out of hand dismiss any future projects, but it would be, it wouldn't be basically we wouldn't be at the whim of a developer at that point, and the town could pick and choose what it wanted to do. So I wanted to make sure the public was aware of that. So yeah, I thought that was really excellent news, and I really appreciate that Valerie took the time to do that before she left. She, as I said before, she worked very hard right up to her last day. Next, and this is also something I informed the board of, but I want to get this out as well. Chief Nelson has informed me that the Bolton Police Department was selected to receive an $18,705.60 grant award from the Office of Grants and Research to support the federal fiscal year 23 municipal road safety program. The amount of money that you can get is based on population. There are 4 different tiers. Tier 4 towns, which is what we are, which is a population of less than 12,000, is eligible for a maximum award of $20,000. So we came very close to the maximum award. And just some of the things that are done under the grant or will be done during that campaign are our ability to patrol for winter impaired driving, distracted driving, the click it or ticket program, which people are aware of, June speeding, which is a special program for extra patrol for speeding in June of next year, also July of next year, and then another summer impaired driving. So obviously the intent of the grant is to try to make our roads as safe as possible. Right. By trying to slow people down and catch people who are impaired, who are a threat to themselves and others. lastly, and this, I can't tell you how excited I am about this. I know I don't look excited, but I never look excited. So this is probably about as excited as I get. So we are in receipt of a letter. I got it this afternoon from our fire chief, from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. Dear Chief Legender, it is my pleasure to inform you that members of your department will be honored for outstanding acts of heroism and bravery at the 33rd Annual Firefighter of the Year Award. Governor Charlie Baker, Lieutenant Governor Karen Polito, and State Fire Marshal Peter Ostrowski will present these awards on Friday, November 18th, 2022 at 10 a.m. at Mechanics Hall in Worcester. And I want to give you the details behind it. The details behind the award is the award extends from a call for a motor vehicle accident that occurred on June 8th, 2022 on Route 495, in which a vehicle left the roadway and went down a 60-foot cliff. 2 patients were extricated and brought up the cliff to awaiting helicopters and ambulances. I am happy to report both occupants have made a full recovery and have visited us here at the station. And the list of people, and this includes some personnel from Berlin as well, from Bolton, the people on the call: Fire Chief paramedic Jeffrey Legender, Captain /EMT Peter Casello, Firefighter paramedic Jeremy O'Connell, Firefighter paramedic Shane Cook, Firefighter paramedic Jason Roach, Firefighter EMT Greg Childs, and from Berlin, Captain Tony Alessi, Lieutenant John Paulino, Firefighter EMT Chip Durant, Firefighter EMT Frank Brewer, and Firefighter EMT Michelle DeVoe. I'm sorry if I pronounced Michelle's last name incorrectly. This is just a tremendous recognition for a job incredibly well done under extremely difficult circumstances. I really couldn't be more proud of our fire department. And I just wanted to make sure that that this got the immediate recognition that it deserved.
Wow, that's great.
That's great. Congratulations, and well deserved.
Absolutely.
The chief is still on the call if he would like to add anything. I didn't tell him I was going to ask him to speak, so I'll hear about this. Or he could just be muted.
Well, that's great.
I won't mute myself.
Oh, there you are.
I was just as surprised as Dawn. We were submitted for the nomination from the state. I did have to attend a meeting to go over the call and the outcome with the selection committee about 2 weeks ago. And then I did receive the email this afternoon stating that we were selected. This is a first for me. Proud of what everybody did. This is an incident that the car had to be completely cut apart to extract the 2 people at the bottom of the hill. And the incident was completed in 1 hour from dispatch to both patients transported to the hospital. That includes rigging up the rope systems and bringing them up the hill and everything. So it was a tremendous call for the staff. So I'm very, very proud of everybody who not only responds to this call, but every call every day. So it's a fine example.
Yeah, no, we have a great team, great fire department. Thank you, Chief, and give our thanks to everybody on staff. It's fabulous.
I'll pass it on. Thank you.
Great.
Unless the board has any questions, that's all I have for this evening.
I'm good. All right, well, on next to select board business. Are there any public service announcements?
I don't have any.
I don't have any.
Well, just quickly, since we had the Boy Scouts in earlier before, bottles and cans, please separate out your stuff, bring it to the red barn at the top, at the crest of the hill. The Boy Scouts really need that. That's their main source of revenue. So thank you very much. All right, next up, any future agenda item discussions? Okay, I got nods from both. No. Next up, to execute the common victual license for Baba Sushi LLC, doing business as Baba and the Legacy Kitchen at 544 Wattaquattack Hill Road. Sarah Bloomfield, are you with us? You gotta unmute yourself.
Yes. Hi.
Hi, how
How's
are you?
everybody doing? Good. How are you?
Great. So we're here to execute the license. And we'll give you a second or two to plug. Anything you want to say?
We're really excited. We're really, really close. We've worked super hard. We have cleaned the restaurant from the ceiling to the floor. It's taken about 200 hours all summer. We're at the last step now, just doing the final pieces of the puzzle with the health department. But everything else is taken care of. So we hope that as long as everything goes smoothly, it's a little bit lengthier of a process than we've ever experienced before because the building was closed down for a few years. So it might be like 30 days for the full food permit to be approved. But we've submitted mostly everything today for that. And hopefully by the end of October, we'll be ready to go.
Great. So by the end of October, you should be open and ready to go for business?
We really hope so, as long as we don't end up encountering any more unexpected events.
Great.
But yes.
Well, we look forward to it's great that you're going to open up the restaurant again, and we look forward to that in Bolton.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to be in Bolton.
Super. Any questions from Emily, Bob, anybody?
No.
Okay.
No.
Do I have a motion to approve the license?
I move to approve the common victular license for Baba Sushi LLC, DBA Baba and the Legacy Kitchen.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call Sikansky,
Aye.
Winner,
Aye.
Wysocki.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Good luck.
Thank you so much. You as well. We hope to see you guys there soon.
Take care.
You too.
Okay, next up is I asked to put this on the agenda, school budget discussion, and I think this is probably going to be sort of act one, scene one of this discussion. And I think obviously the school budget we don't manage the school budget. It is managed between the school committee and the district. But I think it's important that we get a little bit ahead of this discussion. And I think the purpose is just to bring up a couple of items and really to get into the meat of it is to invite our representatives from the school committee into a future meeting, hopefully perhaps the next meeting that we have to discuss the budget. And some of the reasons why I want to bring this up, last year when we were doing our budget and what the district presented as their budget, as you know, for FY23, their budget was $62 million and change, which was an increase of over $3 million from the previous year, which was substantial and probably the largest increase that we've seen over quite a number of years. Or any year, and within the last between FY19 and FY23, their budget has gone up over $8 million. And last year was perhaps one of the first years where the school district increased relative to our assessment, which was $16,953,000 and change, which was about a $636,000 increase, or exceeded our total capacity for revenue increase that we could do for fiscal 23 to the tune of $596,461. So the increase in the Neshoba Regional School District budget exceeded by a substantial amount our total ability to raise revenue to deal with our budget and their budget, which is not sustainable. And I think we need to work with the school committee to dig a little bit more into the Neshoba Regional School District budget. As you know, they have a workshop in the February, March timeframe, which they go through their day workshop and they go through their budget, and that's the end of it. In Bolton, we spend from the beginning of January through the end of March going through our budget, which is less than half of what the Neshoba Regional School District budget is. And we bring in every department head and go line by line through their budget. And I've been doing this for over 18 years now, and we have scrubbed those budgets down to their absolute bare minimum. No such scrubbing of the budget from the Neshoba Regional School District is ever done. They have their one meeting in February or March, and that's about it. The other thing which I would like to engage the school committee on is roughly 82%, based upon the information that we had gotten from Kirk Downing in terms of the last budget, the FY23 budget. 82% of their budget is salaries, salaries and fringe. That's over $50 million. And of that, approximately $5.5 million is administration and clerical, which is almost 11% of the budget for salaries in the district. I had asked some of our school committee members last year, do you have an organizational chart? Do you know how many people work in each department and what they do? There is no such chart. So what I'd like to do is ask our school committee members to come in and spend some time to go in and delve a little bit deeper, and for them to go to the larger committee and ask these questions to get more detail on the budget, to ask for an audit, to ask for where the people are, because quite frankly, we can't afford $600,000 and $700,000 increases to our assessment each year. We just can't. So I think I've done a lot of research into the budget. I have a lot of numbers, which I'm not going to present tonight, but I'd like to open it up to my colleagues. I think we need to take a little bit more of offense is not the right word, but I think we need to be a bit more proactive. I think we kind of sit here and wait for what we get from the district, but I think we need to be asking some serious questions. And I think we need to get the school committee to push more and to have a real understanding of where the dollars are being spent. Another item that I'd like to bring up is that we do in the town of Bolton a monthly ledger of where we stand relative to the expenses against every line item in our budget for every department. That doesn't exist in the school district. And I think we need to get some of that detail. So, I mean, I've spoken a lot. I like to open it up to my colleagues.
I think those are all great points, Stan. And I think it's definitely an effort that's worth pursuing. Especially, as you said, looking at an org chart and understanding the staffing and, really scrubbing the school budget, because it is such a huge component of our overall budget. And I think the due diligence is necessary, and I'm on board.
You're on mute, Bob.
You're muted.
Doesn't it know how to unmute itself when I want it to?
You have to use your ESP.
Yes, just by thinking I can unmute.
There you go.
Oh, like some other people
Yeah, I can demute. Yes, I can demute just by thinking. I'd like to throw a little history into this discussion, and that is that many superintendents ago and many directors of finance or controllers, many people ago, no one who's associated with this event back in 2004 is still with the school district. So from that perspective, it's old history. But back in 2004, the school district spent $1 million more than it had in its budget. And it was necessary for the state to come in and bail them out because they were a regional school district. As a consequence of that action, two things happened. One is it took 10 years to repay the loan back to the state. But during that time, the state took complete control of the school budget and eliminated, and basically the superintendent reported to the State Department of Education, not to the school committee during that time. 10 years is a long time. And you get to 2014, 2015, when the loan was finally repaid. And the school committee had lost all institutional knowledge of how to manage a budget or how to manage a superintendent who was overseeing a budget. And they've made fits and starts to reasserting their authority and to understanding how it's done, but there's still a long way off, particularly if you want to compare them to what Stan was describing as the process that we have in the town. So it's not just a financial question of dollars and cents. It's a question of helping the school committee to understand the importance of reasserting its authority over the budget compared to the authority of the superintendent and having them exercise it better. There is a lot of work to be done in that. There are resources available to school districts, to school committee members to help them learn those kinds of things. And we should be encouraging our school committee representatives to take advantage of that.
No, I agree, Bob. I think, yes, the school committee needs to really fully reassert itself over the budget, which for a variety of reasons that has not happened. And I think what I have seen over these many years is that whatever the budget was last year, that's where we start from, and they add this and that and the other. But I don't think that we've had any real detailed analysis of where the dollars are being spent, where the resources are being deployed. With an admin and clerical budget of almost 11% of the entire salary portion of the school district, which is about 50 million. And this is, we're talking about $5.5 million. Is that really necessary? And I think we as the towns, since we're giving each of us, Bolton, Lancaster, and Stowe are providing, huge sums of money. In the case of Bolton, it's almost $17 million. I think we need to have some better understanding on where that's going, because to my earlier point, we can't sustain increases where it's exceeding our ability to raise revenue for the town. It's an issue. And we certainly don't want it to be confrontational, but I think the time has come. We have a new administration. I'm hoping that they're open-minded. We have new members on the school committee from different towns. I think we have right now an excellent group of individuals who are part of the Bolton contingent of the school committee. And I think this is a good time to work really hard, because it's only going to get worse. We're not going to be finding streams of revenue to deal with this. So I think we need to tackle this now, for the sake of everyone, and for the continue the quality of the education that our families expect in this town and in the district.
And to your point, Stan, it doesn't have to be a contentious, conversation.
Yeah.
If expenses are justifiable, then there shouldn't be any, I guess, contention. It should just be an open conversation, understanding where the staffing and budgeting is coming from and why. So, and I think we have every right to review that with the school committee and the district. So.
So I think perhaps to take this, because obviously we are not in direct control of this, it's through the school committee. I would suggest that we extend an invitation to our school committee reps in the town of Bolton, perhaps for the next meeting, if that's possible, Don. And have this same or similar conversation, and maybe go into some detail and specifics of what we'd like them to either look into or to bring to the larger school committee, because obviously our Bolton reps are not able to act independently, but we need to get consensus from the other towns. And certainly, I think from the standpoint of the other towns, I think they're all probably interested in making sure that we spend our dollars wisely. So is that something you can reach out and arrange?
We could certainly reach out to arrange that. I think to be fair to our reps, it would probably be best to give them the option of either the first or second meeting in October.
Yep, that's fine.
I think Jenny and I reviewed the agendas for both meetings in October that we have down right now, because we try to plan at least a month in advance, and I think either meeting would fit. So they may well appreciate the option of coming to the second one.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
So I'll put a draft email together, Stan, and then I'll get it out to you as the chair. And you can make whatever suggested edits that you'd like, and then we can get it off to them.
Yeah, I think it's important that we do this, because I know that obviously come January, we're going to be involved in our budget discussions, and as well as the school committee. And I think if we get a little bit of a jump on this, I think that'll be beneficial for everybody.
It'll be approximately the middle of October when I send out the annual budget message. I always collaborate with the advisory chair. So Brian Boyle and I will be working together on drafting the message. And I've already said to the department heads at a recent staff meeting that, and I'm only partially joking when I say this, that it'll be the 14th budget message that I send out, and I'm running out of different ways to say we have no money and don't plan for new programs. Level fund. And it really is, it's technically not, it is level funding and not level service when you do that. It really restricts any creativity that we have out there and any options that we might like to pursue for whether it's new staffing, new programs, new offerings, whatever it is. I mean, as you know, the staff does a wonderful job chasing grants to try to fund certain things, but grants don't fund everything.
Right.
And we don't want to spend money just because it's there, but we also can't spend money that isn't there. And last year, as Stan said, 4%, a 4% increase to our assessment equated to eating 100% of our new growth. And the assessment came in at 3.9 and change, which is where, we indicated the ceiling was to the superintendent, and he, to his credit, he took that to heart. But, the fact is that ate up all the new growth. And that's just, that over time is simply not sustainable.
Right, because we have to fund our operating budget with free cash, and that is not a tenable position to be in at all.
Well, if we do that over a long enough period, first of all, you're absolutely right. You don't want to be in the position where we're funding any of our operating budget with free cash. That being said, the longer that goes on, that could impact at some point our bond rating. And then it's going to cost us more to borrow money, which is going to have even more negative impact on our budget. So we don't want to be doing anything to jeopardize our bond rating.
Right. And the absolute last thing we want to do is do an override.
No,
That is not on my watch. We're not, because an override is forever. And that is not a good thing to do. All right, well, then the next
If I
step.
may,
Yes, sir.
in the letter, in the invitation to the school committee members, I'm thinking back to past meetings, and I want to build upon Emily's statement about avoiding any sense of confrontation. The letter should put boundaries on, should describe the boundaries of the conversation that we want to have during the meeting. If we're going to have a high level conceptual process kind of conversation, then during the meeting, we can't be asking detailed questions about explain this budget item. If we have questions that we want them to answer about explain this budget item, we should let them know that ahead of time. Because the last time, or at least one of the prior meetings, they felt blindsided and they felt very defensive. And I want to avoid that again.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I think it was the school committee charge of the kinds of things that not necessarily that they need to answer, because obviously they have a larger committee that they have to deal with, but the questions that we would like to see answered, not necessarily our 3 reps answering, but we need to have the committee as a whole answer these questions.
Yeah, or at least tell them what we can tell them what the questions are, just so long as we don't expect the answers at that meeting, right?
Oh, yeah, no, I don't expect them to answer. I expect them to take that forward. Absolutely. Okay, sounds good.
I suspect as much as anything, you're going to be looking to have for next month a philosophical, maybe not philosophical, but sort of trying to set expectations for what the town can afford, what the town would like to see, you know, some overall questions, and it probably will get a follow-up meeting. I'm not so sure you're going to get it all done in one meeting either.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if there aren't specific questions that any of the 3 of you would like to see addressed, you could forward them to me and Jenny, and then we can make sure that they're incorporated in the draft that goes out.
Yeah, because I see these questions as being need to be addressed by the entire school committee. You know, I think that they're either on board with dealing with these questions or not, and you know, I don't expect our reps to have to be answering the questions. It's the school committee at large. So that sounds good. Okay. If we're done with that, we will move on to designate the town administrator to lock in future electricity pricing beginning in January 2024.
This is something that the board has done in the past, as recently as 2020, when I needed to look at locking in rates and looking at timelines and futures and all that good stuff. The good news is that in December 2020, I locked us into a rate of 9.94 cents per kilowatt. That is good until December of 2023. And I've had the contract reviewed, and there doesn't seem at this point, I'm not seeing anywhere where even with the escalating prices that they can be adjusted. So that being said, I've been working closely with Heather Tackle of Power Options to start understanding what our prospects are going forward. And it's not too early now, really, to be looking at the January 2024 futures, because it's a commodity like anything else. And there's going to be variables. There's going to be the world supply, which, I mean, one of the major factors here is the war in Ukraine. I'm sure the explosions on the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines are not going to help things any. And one of the other variables, and I'm totally serious about this, is whether or not we have a major polar vortex issue over the winter, and we have the incredible cold snap that we had a few years ago because of that. So they're all factors. And in all honesty, I spent about 2 hours looking at forecasts of this winter's polar vortex. And I learned quite a bit, but I didn't do it for the educational benefit of it. Just there's a lot there, and when you want to take advantage of pricing, the pricing is good for the day. So but it's good until 5 p.m. that day once it's offered. So I need the latitude to be able to take advantage of pricing when it looks like it's going to be advantageous to us, or it's only going to go up from where we are. I am already getting due to our relationship with Power Options, I'm already getting daily flashes. So I'm seeing what the prices are for the commodity that day, every day. So I would ask that you once again give me the authority to lock in a price when in my judgment it's advantageous for us to do so.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. So do we need a motion to designate the town administrator as such?
Yes.
I move to authorize the town administrator to lock in future electricity pricing for the period beginning in January 2024.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Winner,
Aye.
Wysocki.
Aye.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry to hear, Donna, you're getting daily flashes. So I hope that goes away.
Yes, I do as well.
All right. Next up is to approve the bills and the payroll warrants for W23-0A and 23-6 and W26-68 lowercase p.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Winner,
Aye.
Wysocki.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next, we have one set of regular session minutes for September 15th, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Winner,
Aye.
Wysocki.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. And next up on the agenda is we will be going into executive session pursuant to, I gotta get my screen a little bit smaller because it's too big. There we go. To discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Teamsters Union, Local 170, if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the Board of Selectmen and the chair so declares, and to approve executive session minutes, and we will be not coming back out into open session. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Roll call, Sikansky,
Aye.
Winner,
Aye.
Wysocki.
Aye.
And just one point of clarification that we will be coming back into executive session, but only for the purpose of adjournment. So I'll move everybody into the waiting room.